this border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
5 receivers at Duncan's disposal. Duncan stepping up. Hit! Ball is loose!
Big call here.
Marshall thinks they have it. And the Horde do!
Here's the kickoff from Amaretto Curry to the Hilltoppers, and we are underway. And a fake reverse on the kick return. And here comes Townsend down the left sideline. What a way to start it for Western Kentucky on the road. And it is an opening touchdown return. And just like that, the Hilltoppers strike first.
Justin Rohrwasser to try to win it for Marshall from 53 yards out. It's got the leg. It is good! And the perfect season continues for Justin Rohrwasser.
Goes for 2. Going for the win. Western Kentucky going for the victory. Rolling to his right. Big strike. And they did it! Western Kentucky has ended the perfect season into the hands of Willie McNeil. A shocker here in West Virginia. And it is over for Marshall. They end the regular season 11-1.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. I got Moff here with me, and we're going to do a little breakdown of the Boca Raton Bowl. It's going to see Western Kentucky go up against Appalachian State, Sun Belt Conference runner-up, winner of Sun Belt Eastern Division. So a battle of conference runners-up and battle of winners of their respective Eastern Division. So it ought to be a good game. For Toppers fans that follow the show fairly closely, you'll know that there's a common opponent there, and that common opponent happens to be Marshall. Appalachian State and Marshall locked horns way back in the beginning of the season in a Thursday night affair that was like a 1-point game, and it was a really back and forth type thing, and then of course fast forward several months and a lot of surprises for the Toppers on a number of fronts. Passing game blowing out of the water, receivers coming on like gangbusters, the defense playing lights out. Fast forward all the way to the end of November in the Moonshine Throwdown, and it's a completely different outcome versus what Marshall and App was. This was a dominating performance by Western Kentucky against Marshall. So there's not really too much you can deduce there, and also throw in the fact that Grant Wells was knocked out of the game, so you didn't get a full-strength Marshall for 2/3 of that game. There's not too many things that you could compare. There were a lot of guys that have developed and are just flat different players than they were at the beginning of the season, both for Western and Marshall. So there's just not a whole lot you can deduce there, and I guess for App State as well. But before we get into all that, we'll bring everybody up to speed. Of course, we haven't done a show since the Conference USA Championship game, and real quickly, we don't really need to relive that. Toppers fell to UTSA 49-41 in another epic showdown. There was a valiant effort after a big hole was dug and a quite deep hole to begin the second half, really, if we want to think back and remember. But the Toppers fought all the way back and just were not able to get over the hump, so to speak, and bring home the Conference USA title. But fast forward now, and we're talking about a bowl game. But in between the Conference USA Championship game ending and the bowl game kicking off, there has been a ton of news surrounding this program. Some great news, some firsts, and some, for Toppers fans, not so pleasing to hear. But look, let's start with where you got to start. It's coaching shakeups big time on the Western Kentucky coaching staff. Of course, the big news is, and this is old news now, but it's still relevant, obviously. Zach Kitley now going to be the offensive coordinator at Texas Tech. Offensive line coach Stephen Hamby also going to Texas Tech. Brian Ellis hired as offensive coordinator at Georgia Southern. Tops respond in rather quick fashion by naming their offensive coordinators And for the first time that I can ever remember, it's a trio of co-offensive coordinators. Ben Arbuckle going to be quarterbacks coach / co-OC. Zach Langford, offensive line coach / co-OC. And Josh Crawford will remain outside wide receivers coach / co-OC. One note on the defensive side, Scott Vestall was elevated to linebackers coach from a defensive analyst role. Steve, just thoughts real quick again before we get into the game about this fairly old news now, but I know you've got thoughts. I mean, we haven't talked about it. You know, the folks would love to know what Moff has to say about what's going on. So thoughts and comments on all the coaching changes.
I mean, the biggest thing is the Kitley news. Obviously, as the season progressed and we just saw the success of his system being just so quick and everything installed, just seamless. Of course, having several players along with him didn't hurt. But that instant kind of success really kind of paved the way for him to be just a hot commodity for an offensive coordinator position. And there was rumors toward the end of the season that he was in position to possibly be considered for the Auburn job. But the Western fan base was most closely watching the Texas Tech situation as they changed head coaches, and then their head coach announced that he was retaining the offensive coordinator. But then a couple weeks later, that coordinator got snagged up by Louisiana Tech here in Conference USA, bringing that position back open again, and ultimately Kitley decided to take that job, which you can't blame him. That's home for him. So, you know, we'll wish him well there. He is going to be coaching in the bowl game. We've talked about that. It's been on Twitter, so it'll be nice that he'll be sending off his group of players, you know, that kind of came with him, hopefully with another big performance and hopefully a big W. Then the other guys, you know, you hate to see Hamby leave. He, you know, kind of instantly turned that offensive line into just studs with a lot of turnover there. And then the guys stepping up replacing him, you know, I was really kind of, I guess, unsure about the offensive coordinator position, the move. But as I got to dig in and talk to people, you know, that deal with the people, you know, the Arbuckle move kind of seems like a step in the right direction as far as keeping the continuity, keeping that pedal to the floor, you know, trying to keep that air raid offense. He has been with Kitley before at Houston Baptist. So he's familiar with that system and the playbook, and that's the hope. They're wanting to keep that air raid, a lot of yards, a lot of points. They're wanting to keep that system in place, just with a different guy calling the shots. So you got to have somebody with the right brain to be doing that. And then as far as, you know, the other guys being co's, I think a lot of that is, you know, you have to make quick decisions. You have to plug holes. And plus the recruiting day, you know, the early signing day period is coming up. So you don't want to have a lot of recruits unsure about what's going on in the program. So they made a quick decision. And hopefully it all works out for the best. You know, there's a lot of unknown there, but the goal is continuity with the system and the people, the players in the system.
Yeah, the continuity thing has got to be the biggest factor that's playing in. And let's face it, you know, there are certain teams that when you think of the identity of that team, air raid, for example, is what comes to mind. And Texas Tech is one of those. For a long time, it was Washington State because Mike Leach was there. Really, wherever Mike Leach goes is going to be an air raid offense. And, of course, he was at Texas Tech for a long time. But it seems to me like that's what Western Kentucky's identity is best suited to be. That's what people want, apparently, in Bowling Green. They want the air raid offense. They want a lot of passing. They want a lot of points and yards. So it's a great business to be in because it works a lot of the time. So keeping that continuity is pretty important. And you're right. Yeah. The national signing day, like the early signing period. I mean, hell, as we're recording, it's early Wednesday morning, just a few days before the bowl game. And we're going to finish up here when we're done. We're going to go to bed. And when we wake up, there are going to be brand new recruits signed. So we're talking about the early signing period, and there's going to be, NLI ceremonies going on early in the morning or in the early afternoon or whatever. And so all that stuff's coming to fruition. You see why these decisions have to be made so quickly. From a player standpoint, though, you talk about some of these coaches departing. Well, that goes hand in hand with the transfer portal. And we have to talk about that too, because there are a lot of guys that, I won't say a lot as in a quantity, but there's been a fair amount of big name players from this Western team that have entered their name in the portal since the end of the Conference USA title game. And namely, it's Mitchell Tinsley, Mason Brooks, and Beanie Bishop, 3 guys that were all conference performers that had really career years this year at Western. And they've all entered their name into the transfer portal. CJ Jones was in the portal. He came out. So I guess he will be returning to the Western Kentucky roster. And not the portal, but also basically letting everybody know that the bowl game will be his last game with Western Kentucky. Jareth Stearns has announced that, he's accepted an invite to play in the East-West Shrine Bowl. So he's a junior. That tells you right there, you're playing a postseason all-star type game. You're not coming back for another year. So that's a lot of big-time players that are going to be departing that otherwise would have had more eligibility at Western Kentucky. I think we would both be in agreement that we probably feel pretty strongly that at least Tinsley and Brooks will probably find their way to Texas Tech, seeing as how they shined in the systems that those two respective position coaches of theirs went to. Hamby and Kitley, both Texas Tech now. Those guys seem like natural fits there. They know they can thrive there in those systems. Beanie Bishop, I guess we'll just see where he ends up. I know he's a Louisville kid, so you like to think right off the bat, well, maybe he's going to end up with the Cards. Maybe that's where he would like to go, but who knows? But Steve, it's not all doom and gloom. There's plenty of guys that are in the portal from other places that Helton will undoubtedly hit hard. He hit it hard this year, and it worked out really well. Seems like to be a new, the new recipe for recruiting. And I think Western Kentucky may have actually pioneered a thing. You get the coordinator, you bring along a quarterback and a couple of weapons, and you see what works. This might be the Western Kentucky style of recruiting. This is college football's version of Moneyball, maybe. You just bring in what works as a unit. So look, we can talk about some postseason accolades as well. We'll talk about Conference USA, all conference teams. We'll talk about individual awards, but again, let's circle back and give me some comments on the portal. Talk about, it sucks to see some of these guys hit the portal. It just does. There's no way to sugarcoat it. It sucks. You want to see them back. They're good players. It sucks to see them move on. We get why, but what are your thoughts on the portal moves?
Yeah, the big 3 that we named there, hitting the portal. Like you said, 2 of them are almost gift wraps to Texas Tech. Brooks and Tinsley, and then Bishop deciding earlier today Tuesday. We're into Wednesday. Tuesday to hit the portal as well. Really had stepped up and had a great year this year. Not sure where he's going to go. You hate to lose any guys of production, but those are 3 big names that were huge this year. But then you just have to start to look forward to what we're going to have coming back. And even with all those guys leaving, there's still going to be a lot of talent and a lot of depth on this team. Obviously the biggest question is going to be quarterback. And with signing day coming up, you really are going to want to look at the traditional route of, who do we go after? And then, like you said, the portal is the new, the new thing. Everybody across college football is dealing with exits and entrances to the portal. So, my motto has been the portal giveth, the portal taketh away. So we're going to lose some to it. But we've also shown that we're going to identify some high quality and people that can contribute immediately via the portal. So, you hate to lose anybody to the portal, but you have to respect that decision. They need to make the best decision for them and their future. And I think each of them did that. But I still feel pretty good about where we're at and where we will be going forward. Just because I know that Helton will identify the needs that we need to fill via recruiting.
Yeah, he's done a great job of always identifying a problem and working to fix that problem immediately. And we saw it all come to fruition this year with a totally revamped offense and a totally revamped identity. Had to rebuild from a coaching standpoint, at least. Well, I don't know, revamp. Let's say revamp, because coaches were elevated into coordinator roles and that kind of stuff. So you didn't rebuild. You didn't have to go out and build the whole thing from scratch. A lot of players came back. The system was there. The familiarity was there. But Helton has always done a good job of acting quickly to rectify problems and shortcomings. And he's also proven that he's got a hell of a knack of attacking the transfer portal and getting some players that fit what Western wants to do, not just necessarily going out and getting a guy to get a guy. You get a guy that has a skill set that you need to exploit to get the yards and points that you want to put up. And you're right. The coverage by no means, but losing Mitch Tinsley to the portal sucks. It does. And then when you couple the fact that Jareth Stearns is going to be exiting as well, that's a ton of production that's going out the door. But at least now, as we record, Corley will be back. Davis will be back. Dalvin Smith will be back. Hopefully Joshua Simon will return healthy and at full strength and lethality again. And that, that's just a quick 3 or 4 off the top of my head. And we know how deep Western went anyway. So there are guys, the younger Stearns, Joshua Stearns still there. So we'll see how it all goes. But there's plenty to be happy about. Plenty of guys returning on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously the big question mark every year, unless you have a returner or have somebody already coming in you're pumped about, is quarterback. So just have a little faith and we'll see how that goes. Let's talk about offense or the all conference teams. We'll breeze through those and then we'll start talking about this bowl game littered with Hilltoppers, these all conference teams. First team all conference, Bailey Zappi, Jareth Stearns, Cole Spencer, Mason Brooks, D'Angelo Malone, and Beanie Bishop. Second team all conference, Mitch Tinsley, Quintavious Leslie, Bo Wilson, and Braden Narvison. And then the all freshman team has long snapper Jake Bowman. Individual awards also riddled with Hilltoppers. Conference USA MVP Bailey Zappi, Defensive Player of the Year D'Angelo Malone, making him a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Quite the fraternity to be a part of as far as Conference USA circles go. And Jareth Stearns named Conference USA Newcomer of the Year. I mean, you're doing something right when you start racking up awards like that. And then when you talk about on top of Conference USA awards, Jareth Stearns named an all-purpose. That's what I look at, AP. An AP All-American, second team All-American, and a Football Writers Association second team All-American. That's legit stuff. And, I see from the WKU football account that's like the first Hilltopper in the FBS era to be named an All-American like that. So that's a big, big deal. I didn't write down the list of honorable mention all conference performers. There were a ton of them. Essentially, the only offensive lineman that wasn't named to the first or second team was center Rusty Stats, and he was on the honorable mention. So the entire offensive line garnered all conference nods, and rightfully so. But there were a myriad of other players that landed on the honorable mention list. But Steve, let's wrap up these all conference awards before we can start talking about this bowl game. Give some words to how that all shook out.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, all 5 offensive linemen were recognized, which I think is amazing, and it just shows the success that they had, and that unit really kind of carried the offense throughout the whole season. It's not a unit that gets a lot of recognition or shine. But every time Bailey Zappi was behind a microphone, he said, what about my guys up front? What about my 5 big guys making everything look good? So a lot of props to him. Deservedly winning the MVP, Bailey Zappi. Newcomer of the year, Jared Stearns. Again, deservedly, guys putting up record-breaking numbers. And then D'Angelo, a little bit of a surprise being a defensive player of the year. But, definitely had a good year. There just were some other people that could have been in consideration. And then, like you said, the honorable mention list was just deep with 11 guys. Really just goes to show the amount of talent and the quality of a team that we had on the field this year. Albeit the final win-loss record isn't where you want it to be. We didn't win the conference championship. The only snub that I really see out there was John Haggerty's not on there. Give me a break that John Haggerty's not on. The boot is not on the all-conference team when he was leading the nation in yards per punt. I'm sorry we didn't punt enough. Then the only other thing I have to add on, like the awards-wise, is it was listed today that Bailey Zappi was a finalist for the Earl Campbell Award. One of the final 5 in consideration for that award. I don't know when they're giving it out, but he's in consideration. So hopefully another one to bring home.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what that is, but is that like the best college football player born in Texas or from Texas or something like that?
It said offensive player, and it was a couple Ohio State guys.
Oh, well, I saw something different because he's a finalist for one that was like just from players from Texas. I saw that. I didn't dream that.
Possibly, but it's like a running back from K-State. It's Sincere McCormick, him, and then a couple Ohio State wide receivers. I don't know where they're all from. But yeah, just interesting to be on that list. If that's what it is, that's even more interesting. That's very specific for that award.
We'll have to fact check that one, but I don't think I dreamed that. But anyway, it's fine. Yeah, it is nice for him to finally start garnering a little attention that is well deserved, since he's been snubbed every freaking single other place. There's an award for a quarterback being handed out, and now the Heisman has been awarded, and all the voting came in, and to see that he didn't even land in the top 10 in Heisman voting is, we use these terms a lot, but it is literally laughable that you have one of the all-time historic seasons as a college football passer ever, and you're on the verge with one game to go. You need a Bailey Zappi type game, and you'll own the all-time single season record for touchdown passes as well. Damn, to not even finish in the top 10. What kind of world are we living in? What are we doing here? I was at Busch Gardens the other day with my wife and my son, and we were waiting in line, of course. So I started, for some reason, it started bugging me, and I started looking up like, I wonder what Andre Ware's stats were the year he won Heisman, and I wonder what Danny Werfel's stats were the year he won Heisman. And I'll tell you what, it ain't even close to what Zappi was putting up. No. So it was it's pretty disrespectful, man. I think it's starting to become quite obvious that we're going to need our own sets of awards that matter for us, for our guys to get any real recognition. We live in a college football world now that guys like Randy Moss might not be considered for a Biletnikoff Award just because he goes to Marshall. You know what I mean? And that's unfair. But baller's ball. It doesn't matter what helmet they're wearing, right? If you can play, you can play.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know you. I know that's one of your things. Baller's ball. It doesn't matter where they play. But anyway, hang with us here on the other side of this break. We're going to talk about the Boca Raton Bowl against Appalachian State. Ought to be a good one. Hang with us. It's Moonshine Throwdown Podcast.
4-man rush. Zappi, head fake, end zone, open, touchdown! Jared Stearns! Western Kentucky is not dead yet.
Boca Raton Bowl, Steve. Appalachian State 10-3 on the year. Sun Belt Conference runner-up, East Division champion. lost to Louisiana, who is, oddly enough, Marshall's bowl opponent in the New Orleans Bowl. But that's a bowl game for another show. Hilltoppers 8-5 on the year, looking to break some records, get one more win, send everybody out the right way. Game's going down this, what day? Saturday, December 18th, 11 a.m. I really, really wanted to go to this game. And then I saw 11 a.m. and I was like, man, it's impossible. There's no way I'm going to be able to make that work. I mean, I could, but it's a freaking 4-hour drive one way. So getting a little early in the morning to be making a game out of it. If it was like a 4:00 kick, I probably could have swung it. But anyway, power index, it's not technically a coin flip, but it's not that far away. Appalachian State, 60% chance to win. Western Kentucky, 40% chance to win. Tops are +3 with an over-under of 67.5. I don't know about you, Steve, but that feels oddly like I'll take it.
Low.
Yeah,
low.
It seems oddly like I will take that. This is really two different type of teams. Appalachian State is fairly balanced. It's not like right down the middle balanced, but they are really, really closely balanced as compared to a team like Western Kentucky. Appalachian State has two very, very good runners and a very, very capable quarterback who is a transfer, I believe, from Duke, maybe Chase Bryce. I think he came from Duke. I'm not 100% on that, but I remember talking about it back when Marshall played Appalachian State. But anyway, look for a more run heavy type of game from Appalachian State. They have two very, very, very good runners, as we saw these guys do work against Marshall early in the season. Nate Noel and Cam Peoples, both two of the better backs in college football, and the duo ranks as among the best in the nation as running back duos go. They're just really, really good. So, Steve, what do you think about this matchup? The locale, the opponent, the everything. What do you think about this year's Boca Raton Bowl?
I'll say the Cherubundi Ponzi Awareness Scheme Bowl, whatever it is, the Mike White MVP Bowl. I mean, I think it's always great when Western gets to play down in Florida. I know that's kind of an ideal destination for them, both for the fan base and for recruiting purposes. It's where Western wants to go more times than not. They don't want to be going to the Bahamas, like the MTSU pretty much owns that bowl since they go there every other year. I mean, it's also a good opponent. I mean, Appalachian State is a very quality program, a very quality team. Their record shows that. They have, huge support. Their fan base is amazing and great, and I'm sure they'll be down there represented as well in Florida. And then just, looking at their team from a distance, I did watch that game against Marshall early in the season, that Thursday night game. And I remember being impressed by them. But I do remember it was a game that Marshall could have, should have, would have won, if not just for one or two plays here and there. But, being underdogs, the 3-point underdogs, and that low of an over-under, I know they're a good defensive team. I think they're giving up 19.3 points per game when I looked at their overall stats. And they're only giving up like 250 or 260 through the air or something like that, yards through the air. We're obviously going to come out and do what we do. It's not going to be much of a hiccup for us to put up 40 points in this bowl game. I'm sure they're good defensively. I just don't think they're going to be the best defensive team we've seen all year. And we've seen what Western does, even playing a bad half, will still run out 50-plus points. So, basically it's going to be, can Western limit their mistakes, as we saw in the last game? And Appalachian State's really going to have to establish the run to basically keep the offense off the field. I mean, that's about the only chance they'll have is Western make mistakes and just keeping our offense off the field so we don't have time to score points otherwise, I feel fairly confident about the game. I don't think there's many opponents that you could roll out against us that would be like, oh, okay, this is not going to be fun. This is not going to be pretty, because we were hanging tough in every game we played this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm confident going into the game, especially with it being the swan song for Kitley, Stearns, and Zappy. I think they're going to want to put on a show and light up that scoreboard one more time, especially with some records dangling right there in front of them. I think there's a lot of motivation for them and that trio coming into this game, and I expect big things from them.
Well, some of the things you're talking about has been the recipe that has beaten Western Kentucky, and that's teams that run really well and are able to keep the offense on the sideline, because even in just most recently in the Conference USA title game, that's what was working for UTSA. They were running the ball. I mean, the Tops gave up over 300 yards rushing in that game, and still it wasn't a blowout. It was an 8-point, I can't call it an eke out victory, because, they didn't really relinquish the lead after they kind of took a stranglehold on it coming out of halftime. And, quick as a hiccup, you went from 14 down to 28 down. And it was like, so you didn't eke it out, but it just goes to show that it ends up being an 8-point game in that game, just to show you how fast Western Kentucky can score and get back into a ball game. If they get a stop or two, you might as well just count that they can put up 14 if they get those 2 stops. But being that Appalachian State runs the ball really well, that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to probably have one of their better rushing performances of the season. Now, playing right into that, unfortunately for Western Kentucky, is the fact that Jeremy Darvin is injured and won't be in the lineup, and Will Ignont, it will also not be in the lineup. So you're talking about a big run plugger right in the middle of the defensive line that'll be out, and a sideline-to-sideline linebacker that'll be out. It's always next man up mentality. We get that. But Jeremy Darvin's just don't grow on trees. He's an impact player for a reason, because he's really damn good. Will Ignont is an impact player for a reason, just because he's really damn good. So to have those guys out, it doesn't necessarily sink the ship, but it's something you've got to account for. And you're right with some of the statistics that you were throwing out there in relation to Appalachian State. Offensively, they're pretty good. They're putting up about 430 yards a game offensively, really balanced. Like I said, 240 through the air, another 188 on the ground. It's all right there, but they have the ability to just run wild on you with Peoples, and Nate Noel. So these are what the season averages are. Appalachian State and Sean Clark, that whole coaching staff, they're really good at maximizing what's there on the table. And if the run can't be stopped, they'll pass to keep you honest, but there's really no reason for them to stop running. Conversely, if Western can't get a pass breakup and everything's completed, well, they'll run to keep you honest, but they'll probably just keep passing. They'll just do what works. They're scoring about 34 points a game, a tick over 34 points a game, which is kind of right in line of what Western's allowing. They're allowing just right around 29. So give or take a field goal or two or a touchdown, you're at the season average. But the big disparity, like you said, is the Appalachian State defense versus the Western Kentucky offense. Western putting up about 43 points a game, whereas Appalachian State's only allowing 19. Well, here's what I would say to that. There's no air raid team that's fielding a Bailey Zappi, a Jared Stearns, Mitch Tinsley, a Daywood Davis, a Dalvin Smith, and whoever else you want to throw out there in the Sun Belt. Okay, so this is an offense that they have not faced before, and they will most likely not face again. I mean, we're seeing a historic season by this quarterback. None of the guys on this Appalachian State roster are probably going to see this kind of production again. And again, what you say, I believe too. Zach Kitley is on his way out to a new gig. Bailey Zappi's exhausted his eligibility. This is his last hurrah. Jared Stearns is going to test the NFL waters. Tinsley's going to the transfer portal. Brooks, transfer portal. A lot of guys, this is their last go-round in a Hilltopper uniform with a lot of records dangling there within striking distance. So you better believe it's going to be all gas and no brakes. What do they got to lose? They're playing with house money. So they're going to either go out in a blaze of glory or they're just going to burn the bulbs off the scoreboard. That one of the two is going to happen. Let's talk about some players to look out for, particularly, Steve, and then we'll get your particular keys to victory and the score prediction. Of course, when you're talking about offense, it has to start with the quarterback. Western Kentucky knows that better than anybody. And for Appalachian State, I mentioned in the lead-in is Chase Bryce, 227 out of 367 for just over 3,000 yards on the season, 23 touchdowns versus 10 interceptions. He has been sacked 13 times, so roughly once a game. I mean, that's good production, 3,000 yards, 23, 2-to-1, basically touchdown to interception ratio. That's good for a quarterback. The damage comes in the run game, really. Nate Noel, 196 attempts for 1,078 yards, and Cameron Peoples, 153 attempts for 825 yards. Both those guys flirting right around 5.5 yards per attempt. Cam Peoples, though, 14 touchdowns on the ground, whereas Noel is only has 4 on the ground. But these guys both have game-breaking ability. Through the air, the big guys you got to look out for, there's really 3 of them. Corey Sutton, 61 catches on the year, 904 yards, leads the team, and 7 touchdowns, also leads the team. Actually, he leads the team in all the major categories, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Malik Williams, 51 catches, 783 yards, 6 touchdowns, tied for second on the team with Thomas Hennigan, 55 catches, 776 yards, and 6 touchdowns. It seems like Thomas Hennigan has been there for like 85 years, but man, he's a good one. He's fun to watch. So Sutton, Williams, and Hennigan are guys you all got to put a spotlight around. You got to put a circle on them. You got to know where they are because all these guys have game-breaking ability. These 5-6 guys that we ran down are the ones you really, really, really have to know where they are at all times. But we've seen this Western Kentucky defense rise to the occasion during more than one game this year. Just kind of got a slow start in the Conference USA title game, or else we might be singing a different tune right now. Defensively, trio of linebackers are the guys that are doing the damage. One in particular, when you talk about total tackles, DeMarco Jackson, 114 total tackles. The next guy in line, number 2 on the team, has 66 total tackles. What? 114 total tackles. DeMarco Jackson leads the team, obviously. 55 of those solo. 6 sacks is good for third on the team. 5 passes defended, an interception, 1 forced fumble on the year. Trey Cobb, linebacker, 66 total tackles, 28 solo. 4 passes defended, 3 picks, a forced fumble, and 2 fumble recoveries. Nick Hampton, 65 tackles, 35 solo, a pass defended, and 10 sacks. What? Did I say 10 sacks? Holy God, I must have missed that. I thought it said 0. Yeah, Nick Hampton, 10 sacks, leads the team. Interceptions, leading the team, Stephen Jones, defensive back, has 5. Impact plays across the team, though. They're pretty good at a number of these. You're talking about sacks as a team. They got 35 on the year, 9 forced fumbles, 6 fumble recoveries, and 15 interceptions. Big impact plays. Defensively, they're allowing just 325 yards per game. And, of course, the tops are well over 500 yards a game on offense. They are a little bit more porous through the air than they are on the ground, but by no means porous, really. Only 206 yards per game allowed through the air for Appalachian State, only 119 on the ground. But that's going to come to a head. I think we all know that if you hold Bailey Zappi to 200 yards in a game, holy moly, you have really – he's either gotten hurt or you've done something. It's one of those two things. So, Steve, based on all we just said there, what are your keys to victory for the Tops in the 2021 Boca Raton Bowl?
I was going to go with point number 1 to be start fast. But I think I've said that almost every game. Start fast. But this team, for whatever reason, whatever it is, they don't start fast. So I want to rephrase it. Don't dig a hole.
There you go.
Don't get down 14-0. Because we've seen that every time they've fallen behind by more than one score, they're not digging out of that hole. They're not able to come back. It puts too much pressure on the offense to be, scoring at an 80-90% clip the rest of the game, which just isn't feasible for any offense, no matter how high octane. So don't dig a hole. The second thing is establish some sort of a run game. It doesn't have to be a 100-yard rusher. That's not something they've done all season. I don't expect it to happen in this bowl game, but you have to at least have that threat of you can put it in somebody's gut, be it Cofield or Robichaux, Whittington, whomever it is, Jakari Moses, at least have that versatility, that threat that, hey, we could pick up the tough yards and get the first down on the ground if we need to. The third thing is just going to be, the offense just has to continue doing what they do, score points, finish drives. This could be a game that is a grind out game. Could come down to a last possession. You hope not, but in those type of games, every point is going to matter. And then with that being said, the last point is going to be, don't have too many self-inflicted injury or self-inflicted penalties and turnovers, stuff that you can control, play a clean game. We saw that the last game, with penalties, with bad snaps, with turnovers, just things that once you start piling those up and you have 2, 3, 4 against you, it really makes it that much harder. It took a 14-point deficit to a 28-point deficit in a matter of minutes against UTSA. And granted, they almost came back and made it respectable, to a one-possession game. But you have to keep that turnover margin, respectable or even, at worst. You can't be a -2, -3, and giving their offense that many more opportunities to score, which is just going to sway the time of possession and really kind of shrink down your opportunity to put points on the scoreboard. And it's as simple as it is. And we've seen relatively clean football from Western all season, except for this last game. It was a little sloppy, just on all fronts. Just execution-wise, just wasn't where it needed to be. And this is the one where it needs to be clean. It's the bowl game. It's the last one, and you want to send everybody out with a victory.
This is the one, to me, where the defense has to get back to what we had seen in the previous 6, 7, 8 weeks before going into the Conference USA title game, because they were so stingy. They were so keen at getting the turnover, at just being a force. But to me, to get a win in this game, it sounds simple. Of course it is. I'm talking into a microphone, but going out and doing these things is exceedingly difficult. But I feel like we need to see one of the best cases of complementary football we've seen from Western Kentucky all season long. The defense has to do what they do, which will allow the offense to do what they do. And as long as nobody's putting anybody else behind the 8 ball, if Western doesn't suffer from a bunch of 3 and outs in a row, putting the defense right back on the field, and conversely, if the defense can't get their own stops, can't get off the field so that the offense can't get onto the field, those add up to bad news. So complementary football, I think, is the single biggest key to victory for Western Kentucky. Number 2, it is own third down, right? I mentioned it before. If you can't get off the field, you've got to get off the field against Appalachian State, because they will run you to death if you give them 3rd and 1 all game long. If they're able to go, 9 of 15 at the end of the day, it's going to be really hard if they are stringing together long drives and then ending those drives with touchdowns instead of field goals. But number 3, it doesn't get any better than you saying you got to be even or, on the good side of the turnover margin. That was literally the difference in the game. You said that going into the Conference USA title game. I believe the term you used was you have to be chalk in turnovers. And we saw that very much was not the case. And being that it was, I think, a 3-0 turnover margin and to only lose by 8, you can't look at that and say, oh, it was this and not that. It was turnovers. That's what it was. And number 4, this isn't something that the Toppers can necessarily do. It's not something that the Mountaineers can necessarily do. It's the universe has to play along. The universe has to be nice. And we don't see those fluky plays that we saw in the Conference USA title game, right? You can see you can see a drop touchdown pass, but you can't see a drop touchdown pass and a muffed punt and a this and a that. And, Narveson uncharacteristically going 2 for 4 from, field goals, like all that stuff added up to just be too much. So if the universe plays nice, that's really the outlying factor. Steve, what do you got? Who's your 200 proof player or players? This is the first time in history we're going to go multi this season. Are we going multi 200 proof players for the bowl game?
No, I'm gonna stick with just one. I'm gonna stick with Death Taxes Bailey Zappi, Heisman snub, Davey O'Brien snub, Manning Award snub,
All-American snub,
Earl Campbell winner coming up. I think he's going to have a big game. Like you said earlier, if they hold him to 200 yards, we might lose. But I think he could break his right arm and he'd come out there throwing with his left and still throw for more than 200 yards because he's gritty like that. But no, seriously, I think Bailey knows what's right in front of him. And etching your name in the all-time NCAA record books, you can say I'm not thinking about it or I'll think about it after a season. But he said in the podcast after the Beyond the Hill after the UTSA game, his teammates tell him every single day, every game, how close he is. They know. He knows. Zach Kitley knows. They're going to get him there. He's throwing it, 4 bills and 400 touchdowns and 400 yards this game. So. Yeah, it's Bailey Zappi. He's going to have a big game. I don't know which receiver it'll be. They might bracket Jared Stearns, and he has a pedestrian game with 8 catches and 90 yards and a touchdown, and Tinsley goes off, or Davis goes off, or Corley goes off. I don't know receiver-wise who's going to be the beneficiary, but I know it's going to come off the right arm of Bailey Zappi.
It's fitting that you spend the whole season Death Taxes and Bailey Zappi, but yeah, again, for the umpteenth millionth time this season, we've talked about, does the opponent's 3rd, 4th, 5th DB have the ability to line up and beat consistently Western's 3rd, 4th, 5th receiver? And every single time I've asked that question, every single time the answer's been the same. No, they don't. I don't think that any team at this level of football has the DBs to go. If Western goes 5 wide, I don't think they have the DB talent to go 5 wide with Western's guys. Somebody will get open and somebody will be able to score. And I feel like that's what we're going to see. And you're right. You might see, who will it be? Might be a little bit of all of them. Maybe everybody hovers right around 85 yards and has a touchdown. Maybe somebody goes off and we see some Boca Raton Bowl records fall because hell, I don't know what they are. That game's only been around since 2014. So, who knows what the individual performances are there? Who knows what the team award performances are? But at the end of the day, when the dust settles, we might see some of those records go down. But yeah, look, give me everybody that is doing it one last time for Western Kentucky. That might be kind of a lame-o pick, but, this team's never going to be assembled in the same way again. So give me everybody that's putting on the Chrome Dome for the last time to go out and ball out like nobody's business. And when we come back and do a wrap-up, we'll see who those guys are. Score prediction, Steve. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going Bailey Zappi breaking the Joe Burrow record in one less game. Give me the Toppers 45, Appalachian State 31. That is 6 touchdowns and a field goal by Legatron to 31 points for Appalachian State. So, yeah, give me that record. I'm coming for them.
Well, if I want to try to look really fast because I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know if this app is going to be nice enough to load up for me, but yeah, here we go. The Appalachian State scored 31 points to beat Marshall 31-30. I thought they got 31, and that's exactly what I was looking at too. I can't believe I like the Tops to get more points than you said. I had it 48-31. So we were close. You stopped at 45. I thought it was 48. Give me the extra field goal for Mr. Narveson. But that's just what I like it. 48-31. Well, you beat me to the punch. I was going to put you on the spot and say, does Zappi get the record? And you say, yeah, he does. He needs 5, right? 5 to break or 5 to tie?
Break.
Which one?
Break.
5 to break it. Okay. Yeah, like I said earlier in the season, the man sleeps 3 touchdowns, so he's just got to show up and play for 2 drives, and he's going to earn the record. Let's get out of here on some final thoughts. Steve, what do you got this week?
Yeah, another fun season. Really kind of unfolded crazy. Saw so much potential in the spring game, knowing what kind of quarterback that we had, not knowing how highly he was going to produce. But so many receivers have just stepped up and been just crazy weapons. It's been fun. It's been awesome. Obviously, games out there we wish we had won. We could have won, but that's neither here or there right now. We're focused on a bowl game. And I really think that this group of guys and Zach Kitley are going to give us one to remember and really kind of just be the cherry on the top of the sundae of this season, that we're going to go out with a bang, break some records, break some Appalachian State hearts, and win this bowl game convincingly. I'm ready for it. I'm convinced of it. And I just don't see any way short of all these mistakes that we had against UTSA. If they pop their head up again, I don't know. I just don't see that happening. I think they're going to come out disciplined and play, possibly their best game of the season, and have a convincing win.
Well, it has been a fun season. It has been very, very enjoyable as a fan to watch and see some of the things that we have come to know and love about Western Kentucky football, and that's the exciting offense, exciting defensive plays, wins. Wins. That's the fun part, right? It sucks that it's finally coming to an end, but I think, like you say, we're going to see some records fall, some things that may not be broken again for a while. And to have it come at the hands of Appalachian State, I don't know what to think about that, but, we can't get out of here without touching on what has happened to the region here this past week. Everybody knows by now that the Western Kentucky region and many small towns in Kentucky were obliterated by massive tornadoes that rolled through, and we could not do this show without telling those folks that I know that it's you're in a bad place right now, but there are people out there that want to help. There are people out there that are helping, and namely Appalachian State University is helping. They've got a number of fundraisers out there to help with relief efforts. The university themselves was taking donations of food and cleaning supplies and any type of donation that they could get at their sporting events this week. So just an amazing outpouring of support, and being that it's so close to the holidays just compounds the fact that it makes a bad situation worse, because many folks were gearing up for what is supposed to be a really enjoyable time of year, and now to be faced on the brink of ruin is a tough pill to swallow. And there are a number of, GoFundMe's floating out there. I implore you, if you can, pick one and donate $10 to it if you got it. I mean, you don't have to give $1,000 to make a difference. You don't have to give $1 million to make a difference. $5, $10. If enough people will give $5, $10, $20, whatever you got, man, whatever, it's not a popularity contest. It's not well, I can't give a lot, so I'm not going to give anything. Man, give whatever. These folks need our help. Our friends and our neighbors and our rivals, they need our help. And find one of those GoFundMe, and whoever's donating to the cause that you like the most. If it's the blood bank, find the one that's donating to the blood bank. If it's a fire department or somebody who's running a mobile kitchen and you want to donate to that person so that they can keep feeding people for free, then do that. I know for a fact that the Black and Gold podcast, I think is what they call it, the Appalachian State Black and Gold podcast. They're the ones that were spearheading a big GoFundMe account. Or fundraiser, over $14,000, primarily funded by Appalachian State fans and supporters.
Almost 20,000 now.
Oh, we're up. Okay. Over almost $20,000. I mean, that's not even a Conference USA school, guys. That's a bowl opponent. And they saw an opportunity to help out and they seized that. I mean, how do you not love that? Braden Narvison, the Western Kentucky kicker, has a GoFundMe account. They're out there. Don't let all these opportunities pass you by. Every day you look for an opportunity to do some good. I retweet a lot of GoFundMes that are going to support good causes in and around the Western Kentucky area or areas of Western Kentucky. It's hard to say that without it sounding like the school, but it's a geographic area. Go find those.
I can't believe I almost got out of here final thoughts without mentioning App State, because I literally was just on that Black and Gold podcast a few hours ago and really gave a lot of praise to them for those efforts. But as most everybody knows, I mean, I live in Bowling Green. Luckily, I'm on the south side of the county that we did not get the direct impact of that line of storms. We had the rain and the high winds, obviously, and the sirens were going off all night. But we didn't have any damage, other than some Christmas decorations blown over. So, and obviously there's a lot of people in the community, near campus, near the water park areas, the bypass, Magnolia, Nutwood. There's been a lot of places that have a lot of destruction, complete devastation and loss of homes, businesses. At this moment, I believe they've had 15 confirmed deaths, with I still think over 100 missing persons out there. So just a completely devastating event that we were blessed to not be directly impacted by. We do know people that were. The fundraising efforts, the gathering of donations and supplies, my wife and family have been collecting as much supplies, cleaning supplies, toiletries, towels, bags, trash bags, storage containers, and taking it to South Warren Middle to the point that their donation facility said, we're good. We've got enough. They were sorting through stuff. They had so much stuff they had to turn people away. And we started taking stuff to the old Cumberland Trace School, where they're now primarily taking monetary donations. And then to add on top of that, you see this Twitter account, this podcast account throughout this fundraising drive. And it started out with a $3,333 goal. And I didn't know what that number meant. And when I talked to them, I said, that was a modest goal, but to them, they're like, this is a lofty goal. We want to hit that. Hopefully we can. And that goal was set because that is where their school is that many feet above sea level, where they are. That's why they picked that number. But they blew past that goal in like an hour and a half. And then they set like a $5,000 goal and 7 and 8. And as of a couple hours ago, it was above 19,000. It was like 19,158 with a new goal of 20,000. And it was just nice to talk to those guys and just you see the impact that sports has on all of us. It brings us all together. We all love to have the pride and to brag on our school and support them and root for them. But then we see these social impactful times like 9/11, and now like a tornado, and there other places that have events hit their area. Sports kind of brings them back together. When sports pick back up, and then you also see it bring out the best of people. It brings us together, not only just locally, but just in the world. We're all people, even if we're just bowl opponents, conference opponents, whatever it may be. And I just really think it's a first-class effort, and what they're doing, is completely unexpected, especially again, it's our upcoming bowl opponent, and they've got $20,000, on the table right now, raised, and there's no telling how high that number will go because it's just they're blowing past every goal they have. So, really want to recognize them and their efforts, and all of Bowling Green and all those surrounding areas. Everybody has stepped up. There's a lot of things out there you can do, and people have been doing. Cleanup efforts have been amazing. Linemen and other repair and recovery crews have been coming from across the state and multiple states to help put Bowling Green back together, which is exactly what's going to happen. Bowling Green will rebuild. The community has been amazing. And you just can't help but think about the people that were directly impacted and affected and lost lives and material possessions that obviously they can rebuild. It's just a tough time of the year, in the wintertime, right before Christmas, to be dealt such a adverse blow. But at the same time, we will rebuild. BG is strong. And it's really heartwarming to see how everything's coming together in the relief efforts. It's really amazing to see, and I love to see it.
On that note, let's get the heck out of here because ain't nothing I can say that's going to top what you just said. Hey, when we're down, we all take care of one another. We're all in this thing together, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Sports brings us together far more than it tears us apart. We can be rivals, and that's what we are built upon. Us particularly, that's what we do. And if I wouldn't, if I wasn't 1,000 miles away, I've been thinking, what can I do? How can I help? It makes me wish I lived closer so that I was able to hop in a car and, physically pitch in and help and go put in some time and some hours and some sweat. But alas, my helping efforts will have to be reduced to contributing to a fundraiser, which is equally as important. So, like I said, find the one that is most in line with what you want to support, and support that, even if it's just $5 or $10. I mean, it's the giving season, right? Give a little bit. Nobody's asking for $1 million. If you got it, hey, yeah, they'll take it. But if more likely you got $5 or $10 laying around that you can spare it. Here's to a good Boca Raton Bowl. Here's to a record-setting / breaking / all-time performance by a number of Hilltoppers. One more curtain call for the great Bailey Zappi, the great Jareth Stearns, and all the other players and coaches that will be moving on, and those that will be returning. Take us out of here.
Go Tops.
Go Herds. It's the Moonshine Throwdown Podcast. We'll see you on a recap later.